Give me a moment. All right, so, and it should be coming up. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna turn off my camera and we are gonna go over the principles of design, okay? So you watched 2 videos this week. In those 2 videos, you have gone over several principles. If you haven't noticed, you probably encountered more terms this week than you did last week. So we're going to go through a few of those together. Just in case there was something that you didn't understand, remember that there are 2 PDF files under files in Teams that are labeled principles of design or principles of art, and you can refresh your memory with that as needed. Okay, so one of the terms that you went over this week is balance. So as you were listening to the video or looked at any of the examples that were provided, you will realize that this element really is about achieving a sense of equal and balanced weight in your visual presentation. And so it doesn't matter how you go about achieving this. You just want to make sure that you are arranging all of the elements of art that we talked about last week in your artwork in a way that is just pleasing to the eye. We don't want to feel like we're leaning too far to the right, too far to the left. Just some type of balance where it just makes sense and it feels good. That doesn't mean that it's going to be completely symmetrical. As you can see in the picture right here, it doesn't mean that it's going to be symmetrical. Asymmetry also works as well, where it may come off as though there's more weight on one side, but you break up your elements in such a way that the weight is evenly distributed, okay? So you are just arranging elements, that is your lines, your colors, your shapes, etc., in a way that gives it a sense of stability. Emphasis, I love emphasis. This is where you guys create your focal points and you draw us into a very specific section. Some people call this this particular principle anomaly, and it just kind of means it's that random element that stands out from the rest of the group. And so as you can see, the example that I have on the left is a bunch of tomatoes and then one random green tomato. And this really works because it is united in that they're all tomatoes, but it gives us a sense of excitement because there's something different there, something different going on, and it charges the image a whole lot, and it just gives it energy. So breaking up your design is a great way to go about thinking about your movie posters. They don't have to be super mundane and boring. You could do something exciting there that throws us off that we least expect. So emphasis is when you are emphasizing one main focus in your picture. You guys use emphasis in your writing when you're trying to give extra details and expounding on certain events. That is giving emphasis, and you're doing the same thing with your visual artwork. All right, the other principle that you guys went over this week is movement. And movement, we see it all the time. I don't think we ever call it movement, but we give our viewers a sense of movement when we create lines and shapes that allow the eye to travel in certain directions or travel in certain motions. And so as you guys can see, you see Starry Night in the bottom left, and some of you guys created Starry Night for your laundry challenge. And so Vincent van Gogh, his technique is where he lays down actually a bunch of broken lines, and he uses broken color and he makes them travel into different swirly directions in all of his paintings. So he uses these thick, short brushstrokes, and he gives us a sense of movement in the sky. We feel like the stars and the moon are shining because of how he's laid down these lines so strategically. And so the same thing with other things. Even when we look at sculpture, Sculpture, a lot of times people are trying to give us a sense of maybe the body is shifting in one direction, or someone's about to take a step, or somebody's wings are about to lift off. And even though the sculpture is still and stagnant, it gives us this sense that action is either taking place, action is about to take place, or action has already taken place. And so movement gives us this sense that everything is active. And so as you can see, the great wave above, it's very iconic. People have made memes out of it, t-shirts and aprons. But what is so successful about it, in my opinion, is just that sense of this wave rising above and about to crash over into the rest of the body of water. And so this is something you can keep in mind as you're creating your movie posters. Do you want to give a sense of movement, and then having some reason as to why you want to create that movement? Are you trying to create a mood for the viewer? Are you trying to sway them in some type of way through this visual movement? So keep that in mind. Movement is really awesome if you're trying to create some type of mood. All right, so next slide and the next slide are very, 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 very similar. So it's very easy to get them confused. And a lot of times people say that rhythm and repetition are just in the same category anyway. But we're going to talk about them separately. So rhythm has to do with giving us this impression of the last slide, movement. So when you create rhythm, you are using repeated lines, repeated colors, you are using repeated shapes and value. And so there's a lot of repetition going on when you create rhythm. So when your eye falls on an artwork like the one above, where we see the women, they look as though they're dancing in unison, we can kind of feel the rhythm going on there as they dance. Kind of like the last slide where we kind of feel that movement. So rhythm and movement kind of go a little hand in hand, but then we see a lot of the next slide I'm about to show, which is repetition. So they all work together. We see repeated colors, we see repeated shapes. It gives us this sense of rhythm, and therefore we feel our elements moving around and working really well together. So pattern and repetition, kind of like what I mentioned before, you see this repetition of line and shape and color. And repetition is just straightforward. Pattern is really straightforward. A pattern is just a repeated style. And so you guys can keep this in mind when you're thinking about your movie posters. Do you want to create a style that is repeated over and over? Do you want to create a pattern that we see that has meaning, symbolic meaning, but also gives us this sense of rhythm? Like we talked about in the last slide. But here with repetition, you see your elements of art being repeated over and over. And what we'll talk about in the very last slide is unity. This unifies the entire scene that we see before us. So you can create patterns through different lines, as you see here. We see almost like a radial line here. We see patterns that are created out of a bunch of little lines. Our lines are doing different things here. We're creating fruits here, but we're kind of creating shapes out of line. And then over here, we're creating a design. And so there's a lot going on, and you can do this over and over and over. It can be super simple, but if you haven't noticed, it's the repetition of many, 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 many great shapes and many, many, many great lines that really kind of draw us into certain designs. And we're like, how did they do that? So right here, we see an optical illusion, and it's just repeated lines and a few repeated shapes, but it gives us the sense that there are almost several different portals in this one box, okay? So keep that in mind when it comes to your movie poster. I am looking for at least 3 different elements of art. Variety. So variety is, I would say it's straightforward, but many might struggle with this, but please don't look at this as something super hard to achieve. If you are thinking about variety, one of the things you want to keep in mind is, hey, I can be random, but then how do I make this all work together? And so that's kind of what you want to keep in mind. You want to do different little things around your artwork. You are open to doing that with the value, the color, the contrast, your lines, your shapes, all your elements. So what the principles of design are doing, they're really taking your elements of art from last week and doing very specific things with them. As far as variety, you kind of take a little bit of everything. You almost throw it at your canvas or throw it at your paper or whatever you're going to use. But then you also want to keep in mind, it needs to work well together. And so as you can see here, even though it looks very scribbled, there's a sense of symmetry going on here. There's a sense of balance. There's a sense of contrast. Everything that's going on feels unified and it's working together. Even here, we see repetition, we see pattern, we see circles and squares and different colors, but for some reason, everything just feels like it's working together. So variety means you can do a whole lot of different things on your project, but you have to make sure that it just works together. So that is achievable. You just have to plan a little bit, but then don't stick so much to your plan, because then you limit how much creativity can really come forth, okay? So we're going to move on to unity and harmony. And this is the last slide. This is exactly what I was talking about. You want everything to work together. So if you look at the top and look at the side, the top has all of your principles of design. And if you look down the right side, you see all your elements of art. And so what's happening is you are taking all of these elements of art, you are using them in different ways to achieve balance, movement, rhythm, contrast, pattern, unity, and emphasis. And you're doing all of that, but unity has to do with, is it harmonious? Is it working together? Are these elements and principles coming together in such a way that your work is successful? And I'm going to be honest, if your work is successful to you, I think you did a great job. When it comes to your movie posters, I really just want to look for why you did what you did. And of course, we're going to do critique. And I'm going to give you probably my personal critique. I don't know if we're going to end up doing a class critique because it's going to be the end of the year, but I really want you to give me reasons as to why you use balance and how you use balance. So as you're working on your movie posters, you need to know exactly why you're doing what you're doing, okay? Not just because it looked good, which is great, but what we're really trying to do in this class is get down to that why. Why do you make some of the artistic choices that you make in your artwork, okay? So unity and variety, they go hand in hand. You can do a little bit of everything, like I said in the last slide, but is it working together? And that's the question you need to be able to answer, okay? So that is actually it for today. We went over those items. Are there any questions about the project? Is there anybody that needs me to go over some project details with them? I'm trying to stop sharing, stop presenting. There we go. All right, so are there any questions about the project that we went over yesterday? If so, you may ask. We have about 5 minutes. And while I'm waiting to see if anybody has questions, you can write them in the chat, or you can unmute your mic to ask your question. While I wait, I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint from yesterday. If I can find it. Oh, it's being slow. It's being so slow. I'm sorry, y'all. Let's see. There it is. And so the PowerPoint is under Files. It is titled COVID. Ooh, wrong title. It says COVID-10 in here, but it should say COVID-19. So sorry about that. If you were with me yesterday, we went over this. If you were not with me yesterday, we went over exactly what you need to do for this particular project. Of course, my computer wants this to move very slow. No. Are there any questions? I'm looking at the chat, but I don't see anything. And I don't know if that has anything to do with me trying to open. Oh, you're scaring me. Go ahead.
I don't have a question, but I was just saying I sent it.
You said that you have a question?
No, I was saying I don't have a question.
Oh, okay.
I was just saying I sent it to you.
Okay, you sent what to me?
The COVID-19 journey, the thing. I just
Okay.
is it like because all I did was I kind of said like did 3 things that's holding me back due to COVID-19. I guess like kind of like that. I did kind of clips like the move. I did kind of
Okay,
like
you already emailed me some clips.
yeah.
Okay, I
I already
didn't
sent
see
like
them yet. I was gonna double check. You sent them today.
yeah, I sent it today, but I
Okay.
actually it says it's still sending through right now.
Oh, and it may be. I know it takes forever for me to send videos, so yes. Okay, I will check. And Persia has no questions. Tobias has no questions. Okay, so if you do end up having questions, please email me ASAP. You can get started on the project whenever you're ready. Please don't forget that your video notes and drawings are due. If you were one of the people that turned it in and you realize, oh my goodness, I didn't submit everything, it's okay. Everybody's getting participation on that. I just wanted you to grasp the principles of design, but you need to apply them in this project. So the project is where I'm gonna grade a little more to did you really do it? So if there are no more questions, we are going to wrap it up for today. And yeah, that's all. Thank you guys for coming. I will see you on Wednesday.
Bye.
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 Bye.